In this video, we're going to be covering how to play the Rebel trait in set 13, which carries to use, what items to give them, and the best augments and anomalies to look out for. So it's time to dye your hair blue and farm some free LP. So as you probably may have guessed, this comp plays primarily around the Rebel trait, and we want to focus on pushing higher levels as quickly as possible so we can bring in our expensive Rebel carries in Jinx, Alawi and Zoe, and finally Rumble to finish off our comp. This comp is super strong throughout all stages, with really powerful early item holders and insane power spikes when your carries all come online in the late game. The issue is though, if you are being contested or if you're struggling to level up, you might not be able to 2-star those carries to bring home that first place. The full comp uses Jinx, Rumble, Alawi, Zoe, Echo, Ezreal, Nami, Akali and Set. Now since this is a vertical Rebel comp, we can't really replace many of our units here without pivoting into an entirely different one instead. But there are a few different options you can try, like bringing in Loris for Echo or dropping Nami for Ambessa. Don't forget that Vex is also a Rebel too, and although we don't use her in our final board, you can use her throughout the early to mid game and keep a copy on your bench in case you need to activate 7 Rebels if you are still missing certain units. This full complete setup here with the emblem on Rumble is the strongest variation of this comp, but without it you can definitely still play this comp by using a 7 Rebel setup anyway. Let's get on to items then, and first up you'll want to start slamming AP items ready for Zoe, as she's the first carry we'll bring in later into the game in most cases. She works best with a Spear of Shojin to keep her casting often, followed by an Archangel Staff and Jeweled Gauntlet for her damage. You can also slam a Guardbreaker, Nashers or Deathcap if you don't have the ideal components, but make sure you always have that Shojin either way. Our main tank here in this comp is Alawi, and she works best with big solo tanking items like Warmogs, Dragon's Claw and Gargoyle's Stoneblade. Bionic Spark can also be great here too, as well as alternative tank items like Bramble Vest or Sunfire. We also do not want to forget about Jinx, as she is the leader of the Rebel army after all, and she's a huge damage source in this comp later on. She'll do best with a Rageblade, Infinity Edge and Last Whisper, and you can use these items on Ezreal throughout the mid game until you find her. Finally, for our leftovers, we want to use these to boost up our Rumble, as with a Rebel emblem and a Bloodthirster alongside a Rod with the Scrap trait bonus, he'll bring tons of extra damage and durability to your frontline. Moving on to augments then, and by far the most important thing to look out for is an obvious one, and that's going to be a Rebel crest or crown. This will allow you to make Rumble an extra Rebel and drop low cost units like Aurelia without losing out on Sentinel for Alawi, whilst also making your comp just more flexible in general throughout the game and of course increasing its ceiling later on. The Rebel specific augment Paint the Town Blue is also massive though, as it will summon copies of your Rebels to stall fights even longer for your backline to scale up and melt down your enemies. Other great options are combat augments for your backline carries like any form of Glass Cannon or Mana Flow. A-tier augments of this comp also include subscription service for easier and earlier access to your 4-cost units, combat augments like Blistering Strikes, or anything that can simply help you keep tempo and help you get to higher levels sooner or slam items faster, like Band of Thieves or Sword Overflow. Now for set 13's new mechanic, which is Anomalies, and you'll most likely be using this on your Zoe, as you quite often won't have found a Jinx yet by stage 4-6. Zoe's best anomalies are Magic Expert, which gives her a ton more AP, or Essence of Navori, which reduces her max mana by 10% and another 10% every time she casts. If you do manage to find a Jinx early though on the carousel before stage 4-6, you can use her as your anomaly instead, and she works best with Power Absorption or Attack Expert, which simply just give her tons of extra damage. If in the unfortunate case you only end up with a copy of Alawi before your anomaly stage, you can slam any generic tank ones onto her instead, like Defensive Expert. Before we do get onto the game plan, don't miss out on our 4-month set 13 bundle, where you'll unlock all of our premium features like dynamic comp recommendations, in-depth video guides and more, as well as free egg codes too. So hit the link below to grab it whilst you can. Your best chance to win when playing this comp is to get yourself on a win streak during the early and mid game so you can get to those higher levels before anyone else does to find and 2-star your expensive carries. 2-starring the 4-cost Zoe, Alawi and Echo is not as simple as it sounds, as they're all pretty flexible units that other players may look out for too. Aside from your 4 costs, 2-starring Jinx will almost definitely require you to be level 9 as well, so try and push those high levels to find and 2-star Jinx and Rumble as well. Speaking of level 9 or even level 10, you will absolutely seal up that winning bag if you can get your hands on 2 Rebel emblems to activate 10 Rebel, as this will make Jinx fire her smoke signal from the very start of the fight, boosting up your entire board straight from the get-go. Now, as this is a fast 8 comp, the whole game plan is going to revolve around playing strong early game boards and reaching level 8 as soon as you can. A good opener here would be to activate 3 rebels right from the start with Vex, Aurelia and someone like Set for a bit more frontline. Aurelia can hold items for Alawi later on, and you can also look to add more frontline to ensure Vex can do as much killing as possible as the early item holder for Zoe. Level up to 4 at stage 2-1 and aim to start win streaking by bringing in another bruiser or sentinel like Rel. In the mid game you want to level up to 6 at stage 3-2 and be sure to activate 5 rebels if you can by bringing in Akali and Ezreal, which will increase your chances of seeing those rebel crest or crown augments. You can also look to roll a little bit here if it means you can keep up a win streak to hit your 2-star unit upgrades, because you do need to make sure you start winning your fights from this point onwards if you did go for a lose streak early on. Winning from now on will help you preserve some health to reach the later stages with enough HP to roll for Jinx and Rumble, which are definitely required to get the most out of this comp. As for items, keep slamming your carries items onto your item holders and save your gold back up again to get ready for later on. At the end of stage 3 you should be level 7 with a big bank and then ideally hit level 8 at around stage 4 too. And here's where you'll roll down your gold to at least find a copy of Zoe and Alawi if you haven't already. Hitting one of the 2 at the start of stage 4 is really important here, as you need at least 1 copy of them to evolve them during the Anomaly stage at 4-6. So after slotting these in, transition their items with your magnetic removers and activate 7 rebels as soon as you can. Aside from that, look to finalize the items on your Zoe and Alawi if you can, and start saving up gold again if you're able to start winning again before pushing for level 9. During stage 5, here's where you'll be wanting to upgrade Zoe and Alawi to 2 stars as well as pushing for level 9 like we just mentioned. Reaching 9 is seriously important, as it will make it much easier for you to find and 2-star your legendary 5-cost units Rumble and Jinx. If you did get your hands on the extra Rebel emblem earlier, you can also drop the 1-cost Sentinel Aurelia here and play Echo instead, which will not only activate ambushes for Jinx, but his scrap will also help you to make best use of that final item component you often end up with by slamming it onto Rumble. Finishing off with the positioning of this comp, and we're going to split our team into frontliners and backliners. You want to have Zoe take one of the corner spots, ideally the opposite one to the enemy main carry. Then you can place Jinx in the centre of the backline with Ezreal or Nami taking the other corner. As for your frontline, you want Alawi in the centre, as she'll often end up tanking the entire enemy team on her own, and then have Rumble and Echo on the same side as Zoe to help her penetrate the enemy frontline. And that will give you everything you need to know on how to play our Blue Rebellion comp in set 13. Don't forget to click the link below to check out this guide in full over on our website and follow it step by step in game with our overlay. Thanks for watching guys, good luck in your games, and we'll see you next time. Take care.